Novel. In most European literature, the word Roman is used for the novel. Roman means romance. The earlier narratives were associated with the romantic adventures of the heroes and the heroines. The novel now has achieved a wider scope and is no longer a romance, though the term Roman stays on. The English name novel is derived from the Italian novella, meaning a little new thing. The novel has developed various subgenres, but we will illustrate with the major ones. The novel is an extended narrative, and distinct from the short story. The short story is more concentrated, and does not have much scope to develop characters and situations, but a novel has this scope because of its length. A novelette, or a novella, is a narrative between the short story and the novel in length.
The Picaresque Novel. The Picaresque novel is taken from the Spanish word picaresca, from picaro, which means rogue or rascal. The English language term refers to an episodic recounting of the adventures of the central character. A picaresque novel is an early form of the novel. Some call it a precursor of the novel. It presents the adventures of a light-hearted rascal. Picaro means rogue. It is usually episodic in structure, the episodes often arranged as a journey. The narrative focuses on one character that has to deal with tyrannical masters and unlucky fates, but who usually manages to escape these miserable situations by using her or his wit. The form of the picaresque narrative emerged in 16th century Spain. Examples are Cervantes' Don Quixote, and in the English tradition, Thomas Nash, The Unfortunate Traveller, Mark Twain, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Daniel Defoe, Moll Flanders. It is a popular subgenre of prose fiction, which is usually satirical and depicts, in realistic and often humorous details, the adventures of a roguish hero of low social class, who lives by his wits in a corrupt society. The hero is often a rascal, often mischievous, shrewd, wicked and roguish, but charming and somehow likable, in a way as he or she gets involved in a long succession of adventures and escapades.
Gothic novel. The term Gothic originally referred to a prominent Germanic or Teutonic tribe in medieval Europe called Goths. The Gothic novel became very popular from the second half of the 18th century onwards. With the aim to evoke chilling terror by exploiting mystery and a variety of horrors, the Gothic novel is usually set in desolate landscapes, ruined abbeys, or medieval castles, with dungeons, winding staircases. Heroes and heroines find themselves in gloomy atmospheres, where they are confronted with supernatural forces, demonic powers, and wicked tyrants. English Gothic writers often associated medieval buildings with a dark and terrifying period, characterized by harsh laws enforced by torture, with mysterious, fantastic, and superstitious rituals. The Gothic novel is believed to have been invented by the English author Horace Walpole, with his 1764 novel, The Castle of Otranto. Gothic literature emerged as a rejection of the clarity and rationalism of the neoclassical style of the Enlightened establishment. This novel is linked to the ruins of Gothic buildings, which are believed to be a representation of the inevitable decay and collapse of human creations. Prominent features of Gothic fiction include the portrayal of terror, both psychological and physical, and mysterious situations and incidents. The Gothic novel, which is sometimes referred to as Gothic horror, is a genre of literature that combines elements of horror and romance.
Epistolary novel. An epistolary novel is a novel written as a series of documents. The usual form is letters, although diary entries, newspaper clippings, and other documents are sometimes used. Recently, electronic documents, such as recordings and radio, blogs, and emails, have also come into use. The word epistolary comes from the Latin word epistola, meaning the letter. The epistolary form can add greater realism to a story because it mimics the workings of real life. It is, thus, able to demonstrate differing points of view without recourse to the device of an omniscient narrator. There are three types of epistolary novel: monologic, dialogic, polylogic. Monologic. In this style, the letter is given to only one character, like in Mariama Bar's So Long a Letter. Dialogic. In this case the narrative, in form of letters, are presented by two characters, like in Madame Marie, Jean Riccoboni's Letters of Fanny Butland, 1757. Polylogic. This has three or more letter-writing characters, as we have in novels like Clarissa and Dangerous Liaisons. One unique feature of this type is the dramatic device of discrepant awareness, which is the simultaneous, but separate correspondences, of the heroines and the villains, creating dramatic tension. There are two schools of thought on the genesis of the epistolary novel. The first claims that the genre originated from novels with inserted letters, in which the portion containing the third-person narrative in between the letters was gradually reduced. The other view claims that the epistolary novel arose from miscellanies of letters and poetry, in which some of the letters were tied together into a mostly amorous plot. The first truly epistolary novel is the Spanish Prison of Love, Cárcel de Amor, by Diego de San Pedro, in which a large number of inserted letters dominated the narrative. The origin of the genre in English novel is traced to James Howell, 1594 to 1666, with familiar letters. He writes of prison, foreign adventure, and the love of women. The epistolary novel, as a genre, became popular in the 18th century, in the works of such authors as Samuel Richardson, with his immensely successful novels Pamela, 1740, and Clarissa, 1749. In France, there was Lettre persane, 1721, by Montesquieu, followed by Julie ou la Nouvelle Heloise, 1761, by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. These writers used the epistolary form to great dramatic effect, because the sequence of events was not always related directly or explicitly. In Germany, there was Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's Die Leiden der jungen Werther, 1774, The Sorrows of Young Werther, and Friedrich Hölderlin's Hyperion. The first North American novel, The History of Emily Montague, 1769, by Francis Brooke, was written in the epistolary form.
Historical novel. Historical novel, as the name implies, is based on some historical events. In this type of novel, the characters and events are taken from history. It is a genre in which the plot is set amidst historical events, or more generally, in which the author uses real events, but adds one or more fictional characters or events, or changes the sequence of historical events. Historical fiction may center on historical or on fictional characters, but usually represents an honest attempt, based on considerable research, or at least serious reading, to tell a story set in the historical past as understood by the author's contemporaries. For examples, Walter Scott, Ivanhoe, Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities based on the French Revolution.
Social or sociological novel. The social novel, also called industrial novel, or condition of England novel, became particularly popular between 1830 and 1850, and is associated with the development of 19th-century realism. As its name indicates, the social novel gives a portrait of society, especially of lower parts of society, dealing with, and criticizing the living conditions, created by industrial development, or by a particular legal situation, the poor laws for instance. The social problem novels were not confined to England, but were written throughout Europe and the United States. The social novel deals mostly with the impact of economic and social conditions of a period on characters and events around him. It is also concerned with the culture of a people and their way of life. In Victorian England, for instance, the social novel became an instrument of protest, and for creating awareness on abuses of government, industry and other repercussions suffered by the working class in England. The novel presented sensational accounts and stories of the working class poor, with the intention of eliciting the sympathy of the middle class, who may help to advocate legal and moral changes in the society. There are two major types of the social novel, the industrial and the moral types. The industrial novel focused on the country's working class, in the rural and urban towns. It relayed deplorable conditions in factories and mines, the plight of child labor and endangered women, and the constant threat of rising criminality, epidemics due to overcrowding and poor sanitation. The moral novels presented a moral or supernatural element that linked reform to Christianity and played on the perception that the middle class were more economically sound, and also more devoted to their religion, therefore more prone to assist the lower classes before the aristocracy. An example of this was Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, where the lead character Scrooge is instructed by several ghosts to live a Christian life and help his less fortunate neighbors and employees.
Psychological novel. The psychological novel, which is also referred to as psychological realism, is a work of prose fiction, which places emphasis on the motives, circumstances, and internal action, which springs from the interior of the character, and manifests in the external action. The psychological novel states what happens, and in addition, explains the motives behind this action. In this type of writing, character and characterization are very important, and the novelists often delve deeper into the mind of a character than in other types of novels. The psychological novel can be called a novel of the inner man, as it explores the minds of characters, rather than the physical aspects, or the external reality, in which the characters operate. In some cases, the stream of consciousness, flashbacks and interior monologues are some of the techniques that may be employed for better illustration of the inner workings of the human mind. The stream of consciousness technique has been adopted by modern authors, as they describe in details what goes on in their character's mind. This is presented in an unbroken flow of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions of the unconscious minds of characters in the novel. Political or novel of ideas. As the name implies, political novel deals with politics or the science and art of government. It presents the art of the possible, the strategies and tactics of governance, and the whole business of organizational intrigue, the maneuvering for power and advantage, and the interplay of Machiavellian forces and characters. These novels deal with issues of good and evil, justice and injustice, hate and love, as the characters scheme and seek political positions. The novelists believe in Aristotle's dictum that man is a political animal, so could not be excluded from the game of politics, with its carefully orchestrated power play. Characters and the setting are given prominence in this type of novel. Magic or magical realism. This term is used to describe the prose fiction of some Latin American writers, and now also used to describe the works of other Third World writers, who exhibit the same artistic or novelistic idiosyncrasies. The novels under this label contain a mixture of realism and fantasy. In other words, they are graphic representations of ordinary events and experiences presented in detailed descriptions, with elements of fantasy and surrealism. Other features of this type of fiction are dream-like states, mythic elements, and supernatural forces, as well as fairy tales. Bildungsroman. The Bildungsroman, novel of education, is a type of novel originating in Germany, which presents the development of a character mostly from childhood to maturity. This process typically contains conflicts and struggles, which are ideally overcome in the end, so that the protagonist can become a valid and valuable member of society. Usually, in the beginning of the story, there is an emotional loss, which makes the protagonist decide to undertake his journey. Usually, the plot follows a certain pattern, in which the protagonist grows from child to adult in the novel. At an early stage, a loss or some sort of discontent pushes him or her away from home or the family setting, providing an impetus to embark on a journey. This main character often develops through self-actualization. The process of maturation is long, strenuous and gradual, involving repeated clashes between the protagonist's needs and desires, and the views and judgments enforced by an unbending social order. The aim of the novel is to present maturity, so change is important. The protagonist achieves maturity gradually and with difficulty, and there is usually a main conflict between him and society. Typically, the values of society are gradually accepted by the protagonist, and he is ultimately accepted into society. Thank you.